Hello you guys, we've got a 2014 Chevy Cruze. We're going to be doing the Serpentine belt change and doing the Serpentine belt tensioner pulley. To be able to get to all of this, first off, if you're watching this, to learn how to change your tensioning belt, we're going to take this off. And then this is all going to come off right here. And then once you get your air intake all pulled off, right down in here, you have a motor mount. So you're going to have to put a jack with I'd say a wood block. You're going to put it right underneath where the oil drain plug is. Just kind of set it like right up next against it. And you're going to jack that up just a little bit to hold the engine in place. So when we take this off, the engine's held up. So we're going to go ahead and get started. And yeah, once you get this all pulled off, you're able to get to your belt, and then that's how you would change it. Without that, can't take it off. This thing is in the way, and the belt is all right there for it. So what we're going to do is, first we're going to do the tensioner. So that requires us to pull the wheel off here, and then we need to gain access right here. So we got to pull off the shield right here and everything. So once we get this tire off and get the shield off, I'll pick back up on the video where the tensioner is. Alright, so we have the air filter out. That's pretty easy. Pulls right out. Just plugs. Once you take this off and this hose here off, just pull it up. Don't forget to take this thing off. Came down here. I've got the wheel well open, as you can see. Right up in there we have our tensioner with that spring right there. I realized to get that tensioner, the easiest way to loosen the belt, if you're trying to change your belt, you're not trying to do the tensioner, is it might be easier to take this air filter off and take this off, and then get your car jacked up on the engine block using a piece of wood so you don't damage anything. That's just to hold the engine in place when we take this engine mount off. And then once we do that, it should be really easy to get to the belt tensioner and pull up on it to loosen the belt to get it off. And so we're just going to go ahead and get started on this. And I'll pick back up again where I get this removed and we get everything opened up. Alright, so we have the engine mount off. Engine's still in place. Now we're going to take a socket. When I set it on here, I'm going to just use a breaker bar because it's easier to get a grip on that stuff when you have a longer bar. If you don't have a breaker bar, just use a normal wrench or a socket wrench and put a pole on it. Give you some better leverage on it. But we're going to do that, and we're going to pull it clockwise because the clockwise motion will push this tensioner down. Once we do that, we'll get the new belt, we'll get the old belt taken off, and we'll start the removal process of our tensioner. So once we get this all off, I'll start pointing out the things that we need to get off to get this whole thing removed. So let's get started. Alright, we have the belt removed. I know these bolts look a little weird, but it was just a 7/16 that fit right onto that. So don't get thrown off, because I was a little thrown off at first when I saw that and I was like, that's not a normal bolt. But regular sockets or whatever it is that you're using should work just fine. Alright, so what we're doing first is right here. Sorry about that. Right here though. This one comes off because this is holding it to the frame. So we gotta take this one off. And this one right here off. Once we take those two bolts off, this should just come apart pretty easily. But do keep in mind, this is a loaded spring, basically a hand grenade, so we want to be very careful as we remove these two bolts, because if this thing is broken or is about to break or anything like that, it could just snap off or explode off pretty much, and it can cause a lot of damage to you and anything around it. So let's be careful. If you need to put something right there to kind of protect yourself, protect your hands, do it. But as we take off the bolt, let's pay close attention to that spring and how it's loading. That way we can kind of anticipate what's going to happen. So let's go ahead and take this off. So we have the new tensioner here. Same way it is loaded. Right now they have that pin right there that's inside. It's keeping the spring a little bit compressed together. That way we're able to put it into place. And then once we have it into place, we're going to yank that pin out and it should set. So again, this one came with a new bolt. We're going to go ahead and put this one up on top, put the one on the bottom on, tighten these down, and belt tensioner should be all set. All right, we have the new tensioner in place. I've got both the bolts tightened on it. I'm gonna go ahead and see if I can't put the belt on while that pin is in there. If not, I'm just gonna pull the pin and then try to get the belt on. So we're close to being done. As soon as we do this, the belt goes on, and we just do the opposite that we did. We just put everything back together in the opposite fashion we took it off. So go ahead and call that job well done. I always recommend when you're tightening these bolts down, figure out the pounds and use a wrench that lets you know how tight these are going. Always a good help. I kind of have a feel for it, so I tend not to use it, but I always recommend that if you are not experienced in fixing cars or knowing too much about the pressure of things, then I would go get one, and it makes it a hell of a lot easier making sure you get these bolts on right. So this is how you change the belt and tensioner on a 2014 Chevy Cruze. One last thing is that when we put this belt on, I think we're going to make sure the belt is sitting comfortably on this wheel. So as long as you do that, you're all good. Now we're just going to put the car back together. And don't forget, you guys, if you like this video or any of my other videos, slam that like button and subscribe. Helps me out a ton. Thank you.